Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jensen with CCJ 3701, Research Methods in Criminology. So I thought I would do a video that goes over lots of different things that have been coming up through email and phone calls that would be useful for everybody to know about. So you may want to grab some paper or have kind of your phone to text something really quick or a document to take a few notes because you may find some of these things really helpful and save you a lot of time on your paper. So I'll try to go through them as quickly as I can. And if you need a fast forward or whatever, I'll never know. You can do that. First thing that applies to everybody is something I call researcher choice. So researcher choice has to do with decisions that you make about variables, about your topic, about your data, where you could do it in so many ways, and there's so many right ways to do it, that it really doesn't matter which way you choose. You get to kind of own it and make that decision, and it's really up to you. So it just depends on what you had in mind, what you wanted to study, and whether or not what you have is suitable to do that. You can justify any number of decisions you make. So that's just something to keep in mind, is there's like 20 right ways to do this. There's not any one exact way. It comes down to decisions you want to make and things you want to use. So don't be afraid to make those decisions. Occasionally I'll see students maybe have 4 or 5 variables that could work for let's say they're dependent variable and they go, I don't know which one I want to do. I could use any of them. And I said, just pick one. Or if they're all kind of different angles of the topic, you could put them together in a scale and then you could use all of them. It's really up to you. I mean, one of them could be suitable by itself, or you could use a combination of them, but then they go, well, how do I know which one to pick? And I tell students, well, you have to use some strategy here. Number one, go with what is most satisfactory to your conceptualization and your study. Number two, think about how that variable is measured. Is it nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio? Because that's going to dictate the statistic that you run on it, what kind of regression you do, what kind of bivariate you do. And you may be more or less comfortable with some of those statistics than others. And so that may be a guiding part of your decision. And then, 3, be practical. Look at how much time you have and what seems to work for what you're trying to accomplish. Every research project has deadlines and has to make decisions among good stuff. So it's kind of a nice problem to have. But the sooner you make that decision, the better off you are. So researcher choice is a big part of data analysis and research methods about how you want to go about something. And it's very creative and very fun. So have fun with it and don't be afraid to make the decision. It's one that you're welcome to make that makes research really cool. 2, the drafting process. So I will be giving you feedback. It will come from either myself or Lindsay Laban, who is our doctoral student who's actually going to be taking a job pretty soon. She's very well qualified. She's taught this class by herself. And so I think between the two of us, you should get great feedback on your drafts so far. So that's kind of on my to-do list, is to make sure you're getting your feedback as quickly as we can get it out to you. You will be using that feedback hopefully to make improvements and revisions to your paper. It's okay if you didn't do so hot on the drafts. That's why we do this. You may have changed things or made new decisions later after you turned in some of these things. That's okay. Welcome to life. Welcome to research. I realize that these drafts represent a place and time that you were, and now it's tomorrow and things are different. That's okay, because you still have a draft, you have a template that you can make your revisions and changes in. Even if they, are big changes, you still have a starting point. So the whole idea is to get you going so that you're not starting from scratch. So this all is a drafting process. Things happen and things change, and that's normal. Welcome to research. Welcome to science. So this is all part of that process. It's a very realistic part. This is also something that applies to everyone. In your descriptive tables, your tables of frequencies and so forth that describe your variables, a question has come up: do I use the original variables or do I use the recoded ones? Which is a great question. It has a little bit of a tricky answer. The answer is, it depends. What does it depend on? What does my reader need to know? What is the most relevant information they need? Most of the time, the reader wants to see the original variable so that they can appreciate the data you have and make sense of it more and not be confused. And remember, they don't have your data. The tables are really the only gateway to your data they have. So that's important for them to be able to understand and keep track of what you're doing, especially if you're describing recodes in a method section. They probably want to see what you had to work with visually in some way. So most of the time, the default answer is use the original variables. But sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that, because what you would provide to them is overwhelming. It's way too big, or there's too many categories, and it's just crazy, and it's too much information. So you'll sometimes see that with variables like age, income, race, that there's just so many categories or so many intervals or ranges. It's too much stuff. So for the purpose of describing the data, which is what a descriptive table should do, it may make sense to combine some of those categories together or group them somehow so that it's less overwhelming, or simply just show the recoded variable. You can do that too. So that's how you have to approach this, is think about the information as being useful or not useful to your reader. And that'll help you make the decision. If you have any questions on that, please reach out and we can kind of strategize on that decision together and kind of help guide you into something that would work best. Oh, let's see. Again, researcher choice comes up with whether to recode or not to recode. Again, applies to everybody. Occasionally, you'll get variables that are fine, out of the box, ready to go. They're organized, great. That's exactly how we want them. We don't have to change them at all. And you can just stick them right into your statistical test using the Analyze menu, or you can put them in your regression equation, and you're good to go. They're fine. So make sure you don't do any unnecessary recoding. Occasionally, I had students just recode them so they could give it a new name, and they would essentially just copy everything in the variable. They really wouldn't change anything. They were just kind of making a copy of it. So that way they could just find it easier in the stupid variable view. It was always at the bottom now, so they wouldn't have to scroll forever to find the variable. I understand the need to do that. On that note, many of you are using the Add Health dataset. I did add some more files to the very bottom module. So if you go on our main homepage, our landing page for the course, the very last module is a module that has codebooks and data files and stuff. I actually added wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4. So each wave has its own codebook. You'll find every codebook there. You'll also find every individual data file, meaning just the SPSS file for wave 1, just the SPSS file for wave 2, wave 3, 4, etc. So if you are only using variables in wave 4 and you only want to deal with wave 4 and not scroll through stuff forever, you can actually go use that SPSS file if you want. So those files are provided to you so that you get more clarity on your variables and your questions, and you get files that you may find more useful as you get ready to do your analyses. So realize those are there for you if you would like to use them. You don't have to. You can certainly continue to use the merged file that we've used in labs, and that would be fine too. Two more things. Occasionally at this point in the semester, students discover their data set is less than adequate, or their variables aren't working out very well, and they want to make changes. So on changing your data set, I would strongly recommend not changing your data. It should only happen in an emergency kind of situation, only because it is really hard to have to rewrite everything with 3 weeks to go in the semester. Very, very hard. Because if you change your data set, you now have to recode stuff. You got to build new variables all over again. You got to do new tables all over again. That's a lot of extra work to do. However, you would also maybe salvage a theory section and your intro literature review section, so you don't have to rewrite those, but your method section would need to be changed. Minor revisions on the abstract, maybe on the figure. So you can see how all of these things start to domino effect if you start to make changes. And I understand how these things happen. I heard from many of you saying, I haven't chosen my variables yet, so I can't really build tables on nothing. And I said, I know, but you need to start choosing your variables so that you can make progress toward the paper. That's the whole point, is to get your drafts going so you have something to work with and assemble as you get closer to your final draft. So changing data set is a bigger deal because it puts you further behind with more revisions to do. Changing variables in the data set is okay. It's not as big of a deal. So let's say you're working on a variable. It could be an independent, a dependent, a control variable, and you happen to find another one you like better. Maybe it's has different kinds of measurable information inside it. The one you have is nominal and this one's interval and you like it more. You can switch it out if you want to, but just realize you now need to update your tables and you need to update your method section. Those are pretty minor updates to do. There's just a few sentences in your method section and a couple lines in a table. At the most, it's not too bad. It's not as big of a game changer as changing your data. But again, be practical. 3 weeks left in the semester. You have to think about a finished paper rather than a perfect paper. You got to, make progress. Last thing I'll mention is just using a little bit of creativity. Again, not everything needs to be recoded, but occasionally people will say, okay, Jensen, I want to study immigration and I want to look at country of origin. But I have 80 countries in this variable, and I don't care about all 80 of these countries. I really only care about a few of them. I want to test some ideas that have to do with Canada and Mexico or something like that. And that's really all I care about. I said, well, you can just recode the variable to just, look at those countries. You can also organize the variable into regions. And sometimes that makes it easier on your descriptive tables. So you don't want to list all 80 countries and how many people live in each country. Maybe you just do regions. You do Asia and South America, North America. And they're like, yeah, but I really just want to look at Canada, Mexico. Well, again, you can recode it that way too. Occasionally we do a recode on top of a recode. So sometimes we recode the variable just to get it organized. And then once we have it organized, then we start to separate out this group versus this group to make our comparisons. So yes, you can recode an already recoded variable, but again, be careful that you do it correctly, because recoding garbage doesn't change the fact that it's garbage. So if you have a junk variable that was broken and wasn't recoded very well, and then you recode that, you've just created more garbage. So you got to always make sure it's done correctly as you do that. Same thing in this kind of scenario. I had a student who wanted to build a drug scale. So of course they recoded some variables, they combined them all together into a scale: marijuana, alcohol, heroin, cocaine, so forth. And they're like, I don't really care how many of these drugs they do, all of the above. No, I just want to care. I care if they did them. That's really all I want to know. And I said, then just recode your scale. So you recode to prepare for the scale, you build the scale, and then if you don't want it in that way, you can take that scale you built and you can just recode it into 1, 0. So yes, you can recode a scale too. So realize you can do lots of different changes to data to get your end variable, the one you're really after. So when you think about it, this makes the possibilities of data analysis just about endless, which is what to me makes it so fun. I mean, I've done all kinds of crazy recodes and scales. I've done like 35 of them in a row in order to get my end game, and using lots of logic and being able to find people and figure out who everybody is, lots of conditions. So it's actually really, really cool. It can be a little tedious to figure all that out. But yeah, all of these tools are available for you to use. So, I taught you how to recode, that's a hammer. I taught you how to build a scale, that's a screwdriver. I taught you how to build a summation, that's a wrench. You can hammer a nail with a wrench, but there might be a more effective way to do it. So the whole point is to make sure you use the right tool for the right task. And then when you get ready to run your statistics, those tasks are coming together to basically turn into a set of results that can give us meaning in the world and get answers to questions we've been wanting to have. So I'll wrap up here, but hopefully these announcements and things were useful to you, so you know what's coming and you know about some other things that will make life easier. And again, reach out. I think I'm about caught up on emails and phone calls, but I'm sure there's a few of you I'm still trying to track down. So reach out again if we're still trying to connect. And otherwise, good luck running your results. And I look forward to seeing them and finding out all these cool answers. We'll see you later.